Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let me check my volume. It is Saturday, 12:57 in the morning. Somebody asked me, they said, where are you coming from? I mean, it looks like you're recording early in the morning. It is exactly what I'm doing, recording early in the morning. I don't know who's going to be up this time of the night. And I know, even though I say that, people in various areas of the country and various areas of the globe. To some respects, this particular video is specific to America. Onlookers, feel free. But this video is somewhat specific to America. Because this is somewhat of a personal American thing that I'm about to talk about. We have an interesting and complex history in this country. And that complex history, seeing that history sticks to itself, has certain consequences, certain ripples, certain things that dig into the people who are in this country of my particular racial persuasion. and I say that to say it's specific to America, even though it's something that multiple countries have issues with. Interracial politics, just dealing with the interracial races in general. This popped up on my radar. It was too stupid to respond to, so I didn't respond to it. I let it go for a day or so. And yet, one tweet, another tweet, another tweet. One person saying something stupid, another person saying something just as stupid. All of them Hillbots, all of them Hillary supporters, all of them Democrats. Stupidity abounds. What I'm referring to is, just to summarize, and I'll give you what Bernie Sanders said. Bernie Sanders is giving a speech. And given a speech, he's given a speech, if I'm not mistaken, on Martin Luther King's day of death. And he says this. I'll give you the quote, because I want you to hear what I mean by this. This is BuzzFeed. The business model, if you like, of the Democratic Party for the last 15 years or so has been a failure, Sanders started, responding to a question about the young voters who supported his campaign. People sometimes don't see that because there was a charismatic individual named Barack Obama who won the presidency in 2008 and 2012. He was obviously an extraordinary candidate, brilliant guy. But behind that reality, over the last 10 years, Democrats have lost about 1,000 seats in state legislatures all across the country. Everything that he said there is true. Listen to the response. In a criticism of President Obama's tenure that Sanders and plenty of others have made before, it's a criticism that several have made before. But the time and the place for the remark, 50 years to the date of King's assassination, at an event to discuss the legacy, quickly shook loose old frustrations among Democrats who watched the senator struggle in 2016 to connect with black voters and speak on issues of racial justice. Everything that Sanders said there was perfectly true. If I would make a critique of what Sanders said, it didn't go far enough. It wasn't harsh enough. That would be my only critique of what he said in that speech. There are many ways to attack this. Multiple. And what I mean by attack this, one Hillbot after the next sounded off. Bernie Sanders ended his campaign for 2020 on August the 4th with that statement. This is some of the stuff they're saying. Take a look at my Twitter feed, just so you know. I saved these tweets because I thought these tweets were amazingly ridiculous and stupid. All right, so let's scroll down. All right, here's the first contender in stupid. Bernie Sanders dismissing Barack Obama as nothing more than a charismatic leader on the 50th anniversary of King's assassination is perhaps the most Bernie Sanders thing Bernie Sanders has ever done. No idea what that means. No idea what that means. I would say this was the stupidest thing a person has ever written, but unfortunately there's more. And in fact, just so we're clear, it's one thing to have certain thoughts in your head. It's another thing to see how those thoughts line up with actual reality. There's an objective reality. Other people are in this reality with you. You would observe things certainly differently to some degree, but there is objective reality. I can look back over what he said and compare it to what you said to figure out whether or not what you're saying is true or even anywhere near reality. dismissing Barack Obama as nothing more than a charismatic leader. That's not what he said. The business model, if you like, of the Democratic Party left, blah, 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 right here. People don't see that because there was a charismatic individual named Barack Obama who won the presidency in 2008, 2012. He was obviously an extraordinary candidate, a brilliant guy, but behind that reality, over the last 10 years, Democrats have lost 1,000 seats. Wait a minute. He doesn't say that he's nothing more than a charismatic guy. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What did he say that was wrong? Democrats have lost like 1,000 seats, over 1,000 seats. They have failed miserably. You did put up a candidate that lost to reality show hosts. What am I missing? Let's keep going. There's more. There's a lot more, actually. I'm only going to show you a few, but there's a lot more. There would never be a point where Sanders says, I'm really pleased with where the Democratic Party is right now, because once he said that, there would cease to be a need for Bernie Sanders to exist. Trying to make the point that Bernie Sanders is just saying this because Bernie Sanders is incentivized to say this. It's not that he's a socialist. It's not that he's been saying this for the past 40 years. No. That's not it at all. He's just making this up as he goes along because this is his business model. What did he say that was wrong? I'm trying to give this in a way where I'm not screaming at the camera. This annoys me. This doesn't annoy me from the standpoint of politics. This annoys me as a standpoint as a black male. Understand what I'm saying. Most of the time, I look at these guys as political hacks, so I don't necessarily think one way or the other about it, but they're talking from the standpoint of being black. This is purely from the standpoint of identity. This is not from the standpoint of anything else. And they're tying this idea of Obama being black to Martin Luther King being killed and a celebration of Martin Luther King's life and the things and the legacy of Martin Luther King. There is a connection between those things, but it is not the connection that you guys are insinuating. And I'll get to that. Like I said, there's multiple ways to attack this. I want to show what I mean first, before I get to this. Jamil Smith is absurd. I don't know who this person is. I do know he's utterly absurd. Bernie Sanders' business model has been in place apparently for the past 40 years. And the fact is, the Democratic Party are failures. They did lose that many seats. They are purely dependent upon whether or not Republicans are batshit crazy because they can't get in on their own merits. They've spent the past 2 years screaming at the top of their lungs about Russia. I have no idea what the Democratic Party stands for. When Donna Brazile had the opportunity, another black person, if you want to say blacks, if you want to keep this in a family of sorts, what does the party stand for? And she didn't have an answer because she doesn't know. Fact is, even if she does know, she couldn't say it. It doesn't stand for the individuals. There is a distinction. Yes, there may be blacks who vote for Democrat, but it doesn't necessarily mean that blacks or Democrats are voting for their or supporting their interests. 90% of blacks voting for Hillary Clinton was embarrassing. Call it what it is. That woman talking about she keep hot sauce in her pocket, shucking and jiving in order to get those votes. It's optics. She's not going to do anything about it. These people are being useful idiots in the way that they support the Democratic Party. It bugs me because I feel like, wake up. Wake up. But you have people like this guy who's essentially saying Bernie Sanders being a socialist for the past 40 years somehow is his business model. And that business model is only that way so he can attack Democrats, so he can stay relevant. You're absurd. You're fundamentally absurd. You're supporting people who are bought. You're supporting people who are bought. They get millions of dollars. Obama got $1 billion. Where were you when he was allowing the banks to walk? Where were you? What was all of this? When he was letting homeowners go bust? When he was bombing one country after the next? Why? Why? Why do you get a pass? And not just why do you get a pass? Knowing how rabid of a socialist, rabid of an anti-imperialist Martin Luther King was. And you're connecting it to somebody who was a rabid capitalist, rabid imperialist. I find this to be amazing. He would be spinning in his grave right now if he knew people like you and other blacks who were out there shucking and jiving for the Democratic Party, being sheepdogs at best, Uncle Toms at worst, pushing this stuff. You're embarrassing. All of you are embarrassing. Let's keep going. There's more. There's a ton of these. There's a litany of these. Understand, there's always been this association between certain class of blacks and the Democratic Party because they wanted to remain relevant or feel relevant. These people exist. These people have always existed. The Democratic Party has this association with blacks because, let's be honest, African Americans got a raw deal like nobody's business. That calling it a raw deal is an understatement. It's a beyond understatement. It's an epic understatement. And you had one party that was politically advantageous to that party to take blacks on. And they did. And identity became this thing that they aggregated around, they championed around, and everything else, and that's good. But at a certain point, you need to understand when identity becomes an obfuscation for actual things. Meaning the economic issues that Martin Luther King pushed for, those type of things, those things that get ignored, those things that gets pushed to the side, those things that get literally ignored, using race as a way to ignore it. Obama was the perfect icon for that. He was the epitome of that. You're mistaking this idea that because he's black, that somehow his race somehow translates into the policy that he's going to enact. Him being black is not the same thing as somebody who's helping out African Americans in the country. That is different. Those things are not the same. And if you're going to connect Martin Luther King and Barack Obama, then that means you need to kind of, at the very least, there should be some similarities between them other than being black. Other than being black. Let's keep going. There's more. There's more. There's a ton. Like I said, there's a ton of these. Do this all day. I'm not, by the way. Bernie Sanders addressing a crowd of thousands gathered at the AFSCME headquarters to commemorate Dr. King's legacy. Sanders calls for doubling down on King's efforts for proper living wages, workers' rights, racial harmony. Yeah. That's good. That's fine. Well, you had other lefties sounding off. And of course, George Reed. For the record, Barack Obama is quite a bit more than just a charismatic leader. He never said she was just charismatic. She's lying. Call it what it is. She's lying. She's lying. She's completely lying. Joy-Ann Reid is lying through her teeth right here. For the record, Barack Obama is quite a bit more than just a charismatic leader, and the past decade saw genuine progress. Oh, okay. Particularly on healthcare and LGBTQ rights. Here's the thing. There is no negative for issues of identity. Zero. It doesn't adversely affect your corporate overlords one iota. As long as those people can shop, as long as those people can spend their money, your corporate overlords are fine. It in no way adversely affects the people who gave Obama $1 billion, or the people who gave Clinton $1 billion, or the people who gave Gore, or what. Down the line, the people who buy your politicians are not adversely affected by civil rights or LGBTQ rights. So yes, Democrats can be strong on those issues because there is no tug for taking those issues on. I give you no gold marks for something that doesn't actually affect your economic corporate donors, your buyers. As for healthcare, let's in the past decade saw genuine progress, particularly on healthcare and LGBTQ rights. The fierce backlash against Obama era doesn't negate it, and MLK died to make that progress possible. That part's true. That part is true. He died to make the progress possible. He died to allow the opportunity for somebody who looked like him to take that office. But he would be spinning in his grave if he knew what Obama did when he got the opportunity using his legacy to take that office. I think that's what pisses me off. I think that's what annoys me about this. It's leverage from the standpoint of race. And it's attacking from the standpoint of race. And they're using race as a club. But the club itself is the same thing that they use sex when Hillary Clinton says everyone is sexist for not voting for me. Or everyone is sexist for taking issue with me in this kind of way. And that's too strong. The point is, she said, nobody said anything. She was implicitly saying, let's say it that way, that people were sexist for telling her to shut up and go away. That it wasn't a political stance. It was a sexist stance. No, it was a political stance. Go away. But this is kind of my point. Calling everyone sexist in that, it undermines sexism. There are people who are actually sexist. There are women who deal with bosses every day. There are men who deal with bosses every day, more so women. Calling it sexist undermines what those people deal with in the same way that saying that this is some kind of issue of race undermines issues of race. Everything that Bernie Sanders said, and that was right. So in no way would I defend Bernie Sanders in this. And like I said, you can talk about this in multiple ways, meaning you can address this. Just to make one point. Just because a bunch of heelbots, roughly 20-some% of the population, scream about something, that is not indicative of the reality of things. That's just 20-something% of the population screaming about something. They don't like you talking about Obama. That's all that is. And the majority, a large percentage of African Americans, just so happen to be Democrats. Now, it's not so much that they love the party. It's more so that they're terrified of Republicans. There's a distinction in those things. I support you because of who you are not. If there was somebody else who was better who I thought could get elected, I would probably support them. But I support you because of who you're not. There's a cultural connection with the Democratic Party and blacks that makes this vote somewhat difficult to pry away. They don't understand that if you're voting for Hillary Clinton in those numbers, there's no reason for the Democratic Party or Hillary Clinton to do anything for your behalf. Zero. The incentive falls away. I'm going to get that vote anyway. Bernie Sanders, just to be clear, Bernie Sanders, country's most active politician. When you look at the numbers, look at African Americans. 73%. 73%. I'll put the poll at the bottom. You can read for yourself. There's a segment of the population, a tiny segment of the population, the Joanne Reeds, the African Americans that have a platform that tends to lean towards the side of Democrats, that tend to be sheepdogs, that tends to go in the Democratic direction, wherever that particular direction is, regardless of their own value system. Their value system is affiliated, it was affixed to whatever the party is, meaning they don't have a value system at all. What they're telling you is ridiculous. African Americans support Sanders. This is just them. This is them screaming. I want to make that clear. That's the first point. It's not everybody. When Tom Perez led by his values, and in leading by his values told him that we need to make Bernie Sanders the white candidate so we can tar him. That was him. That was him. That was political. That was Tom Perez, Hispanic, taking a political weapon of identity and using it to attack a white candidate that just so happened was running within the Democratic Party. This is profoundly gross, racist even, and gross. You're literally using the race of the candidate in order to attack the candidate with this idea of, if blacks see him as the white candidate, they'll be less inclined to vote for him because he's the white candidate. We can make this idea that he's white. It's using the technique that they use on Republicans within the Democratic Party on Bernie Sanders. It didn't work. He was still getting some of the most racially diverse states that were out there. It didn't work. They're howling about this, but the fact is, this howling is probably not going to go anywhere. And just to make a point, like I said, there are multiple ways where you can attack this. I don't want this video to go too long, but it's already gone long. There's several ways you can attack this. One of the ways, and the main way that I'm going to attack this, is the way that bugged the shit out of me when I first dealt with this issue. This is Martin Luther King's prison pic. I like to use this picture. I use this picture because I want to drill in, he was a radical. The peacenik that people try to make you think, the man was a radical. Yes, in comparison to what Malcolm X wanted, yes, he seemed to be more peaceful. Well, peace in this case was a weapon. I know that sounds profound, but peace in this case was a weapon. And he used that weapon to dramatic effect in order to change the way this country operated and change the way they saw people like me. Obama used this in order to get in office. And the question becomes, what did he get in office to do? What did he do when he was in that office? What was King's legacy? How was King's legacy espoused by the President of the United States, who all of these people are howling about because somebody said something tepidly on his birthday? Do you remember this? In fact, before I show that, let's show this. This video is going far longer than I want, but whatever. Take a look at this.
Promises of the Great Society have been shot down on the battlefield of Vietnam, making the poor, white and Negro, bear the heaviest burdens both at the front and at home.
You know, wasn't the thing he had to do? I think it was not a political thing, as it turned out. I think it was kind of like a death knell for him. But it was a very brave thing for him to do, because he went against all the people, you know, who we considered reasonable.
I'm not going to show the entirety of the speech. It's not today because this video is running long. But I want to get something across. He gave that speech in the 60s. Now, he was in hostile territory. Cops, and just make a point. He was in hostile territory. So look at this.
Until we are able to make this kind of witness in this city, so that the power structure downtown will have to say, we can't stop this movement, and the only way to deal with it is to give these people what we owe them and what their God-given rights and their constitutional rights demand. Let us free, children trainers coming, 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 till that free, coming, children trainers coming, 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 till that free,
That's Martin Luther King being locked up while he's praying. He was in hostile territory. They sick dogs on him, sprayed water hoses on him, they beat him. When they got him in that prison cell, you have a bunch of redneck cops with Martin Luther King in that prison cell. They hate his guts, threatened him with dogs, pretended as if the dogs were going to bite him. He comes out there shaken, and he said, "This is what I must endure for my people to be free." There is a gravity, a moral gravity about Martin Luther King and the things that he was willing to endure for us, for the opportunities that Obama got to be president. When Obama got in office, do you remember this? Right here. Let's see. I think it's this one. Right here.
Massachusetts have dropped a disorderly conduct charge against Harvard University scholar Henry Louis Gates Jr. But as Michelle Gielan tells us, Gates is still furious over what he sees as racial profiling by the arresting officer.
He wants an apology, which probably will not be forthcoming, and he wants to make sure that this officer is not in a position, or any officer in a position, of compromising the rights of any citizens.
Gates was arrested at his own home late last week. He was trying to force open a jammed front door. A neighbor reported a possible break-in.
Louis Gates. If you remember, like I said, there are multiple ways to attack this. I'm attacking this from the personal way, where I thought it was somewhat disgusting, from the perspective of an African American male. Now, I understand the politics. I don't care about the politics. There's a historical context associated with the behaviors. Now, if you're telling me that Bernie Sanders can't say anything about Obama on Martin Luther King's birthday, then you need to show some connection between those two things, where one person emulated in some way, other than his skin color, the person who was killed on that day. Martin Luther King just got arrested praying, marching, pushing back against an imperialistic system. You heard him give speeches against the war in Vietnam, and that speech on the war in Vietnam was a backlash. Just because he was talking against the war doesn't necessarily mean that people were okay with him talking against the war. There was a backlash. Roundly backlash. Blacks and whites. How dare this Negro talk about the war in this way. He knew he was going to get the backlash when he said it. He did it anyway. Morally, he felt that it was necessary to do because he felt like, how on earth can I be a minister and push for civil rights when we're doing this abroad? We're bombing and killing these people abroad. How can I have any integrity as a minister and give that a pass? Just because the Democratic Party in this situation is assisting African Americans. It took a gravity. That's moral character. Louis Gates gets arrested at his front door. Obama responded to this. This is Obama's response.
Reported, though, is that the guy forgot his keys, jimmied his way to get into the house. There was a report called into the police station that there might be a burglary taking place. So far, so good, right? I mean, if I was trying to jigger into, well, I guess this is my house now, so it probably wouldn't happen. But let's say my old house in Chicago. Here I'd get shot. But so far, so good. They're reporting. The police are doing what they should. There's a call. They go investigate what happens. My understanding is, at that point, Professor Gates is already in his house. The police officer comes in. I'm sure there's some exchange of words, but my understanding is that Professor Gates then shows his ID to show that this is his house. And at that point, he gets arrested for disorderly conduct. Charges which are later dropped. Now, I don't know, not having been there and not seeing all the facts, what role race played in that, but I think it's fair to say, number one, any of us would be pretty angry. Number two, that the Cambridge police acted stupidly in arresting somebody when there was already proof that they were in their own home. And number three, what I think we know separate and apart from this incident is that there is a long history in this country of African Americans and Latinos being stopped by law enforcement disproportionately.
Right here. No issue. He's the president of the United States. He's not going to be as harsh as I would be talking about something like this. The cop acted stupidly and gives a logical argument. He was at his door. It was his house. He gave identification. There was no reason to arrest him. The cop acted stupidly. There would be other words, but the cop acted stupidly. Obama gets a little heat from Republicans. And that immediately becomes this.
They're sitting down to try to hash out what happened when Professor Henry Louis Gates and Sergeant James Crowley had an encounter that led to a national debate about race in America. And tonight, the president, who has downplayed the notion of a beer summit, is trying to tap into that. Chip Reed is at the White House tonight. And Chip, the president said earlier today he preferred to call this a chat. But will anything substantive come out of it, do you think?
Well, you know, Katie, we have asked White House officials repeatedly if there's going to be any follow-up to this meeting, if there's going to be any effort to make this a teachable moment, as the president has said, for the nation on race relations. And the answer has basically been no.
In the Rose Garden today, the three men who ignited a national firestorm over racial profiling sat down for a beer. Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates and police sergeant James Crowley, who arrested Gates in his
beer fucking summit. A beer summit. One man is in his 60s in hostile territory, risking his life to push back against the Vietnam War and to push for racial relations. The other man sees a friend of his get locked up at his front door, acknowledges that it was stupid, acknowledges that race may have played a role in it, acknowledged all of these things. And after a little bit of heat, nobody was trying to shoot him. Nobody was at his door with a bat. Nobody was burning a cross in his yard. With a little bit of heat, let's have a beer summit. Let's raise the profile of this cop, this stupid cop who arrested this person at his own front door? Is he incompetent or is he racist? Which one is it? Which one is it? Explain to me. If it's incompetence, fair enough. I never said he was racist. I said he's incompetent or racist. Which one? He arrested a person at his front door. That sounds stupid to me. Obama was right. It's stupid. Then why elevate the profile of the stupid cop that did that? He even invokes the point that race may have played a role in it. Why elevate what you consider to be stupid? Why elevate this cop who rocked up your friend at his door? Why do that? One person is in hostile territory, the other one is not. One person is in a situation where he's taking advantage of what Martin Luther King gave, meaning the threats that he took, the death that he took on, the burden, the heavy load that Martin Luther King picked up in race relations. Obama took advantage of this and became president of the United States. Gold star. A situation comes up with race where a friend of his gets locked up in the same way the king has been locked up, gets dragged away at his front door and thrown into jail. And the president of the United States, who speaks about this, says this is stupid, turns around after getting a little bit of heat, a tepid amount of heat, and calls for a beer summit to elevate the perspective and the persona of this particular cop that did that. That cop, taking the elevation of the president of the United States, turns around and says, I did nothing wrong, and Gates was wrong. Gates was later cleared of this, and Gates, as you can understand, was pissed off that this took place. Don't tell me and make the relation between Obama and King. There is no relation other than race. Zero. You will not get any sympathy from me on this. At the end of the day, look, what people mistaken, they think that race covers all this other stuff. It doesn't. Economics matter. The class to which you associate yourself matters. Who you represent matters. If you're talking about Martin Luther King and you're invoking the name of Obama, the only thing that you're really invoking is the race between those two people. That gets nowhere with me. I'm sorry. This was a failure. Call it what it is. This was an unmitigated failure. It is impossible for you to be an African American to see the president of the United States cowed in this way. Powerful man on the planet, cowed by a cop, a dumbass cop who locked somebody up at his front door because he was too stupid to read the certification, or he was too arrogant to realize that he had fucked up. Whatever one it is, he should not have been elevated by Obama. And the fact that Obama acknowledges that what he did was stupid and still elevated him on top because he was so weak that the tepid amount of pressure that he got was enough to make him bow his head. Now, as an African American, I looked at that and said, even the president of the United States is cowed by cops. No, I didn't like that scene. I didn't like the way that looked. I didn't like the way that felt. Lewis Gates is your friend. You call it stupid. I would have used another few choice words, but whatever. I'll stick it. I'll take it. You backed away from it. Even if you say, I never backed away from the statements, you had a beer summit. You capitulated. Don't tell me about Martin Luther King in coordination with Barack Obama. The only association between those two things is his race. And you're a useful idiot if you believe there's anything else between the two. This one has stayed way, way too long. I'll see if anybody's here. There are a few people here. This annoyed the shit out of me. MLK tried to unite civil rights and anti-war movement, then create a third party. Obama was the opposite. He was the opposite. Call it what it is. He was the opposite. Where were you when it dawned on you that Obama wasn't the person that you thought he was? If you were an African American, I could think back to the time where he was. Like, for instance, I remember distinctly where I was when Obama won the White House. I also somewhat remember moments where I thought to myself, ooh, I don't like that. This was one. This was the first. This was the first where I was like, oh my God, that's, oh. And like many African Americans, I made excuses. Well, I mean, it's first year. I mean, what can you do? There's a different rule for blacks than there are whites. That is true, by the way. There is a different rule. All blacks. Blacks learn that at a very early age. There is a different rule. There's a higher standard. You need to do better. You need to do this in order to get the same appreciation or the same approval. So I understood it. Fair enough. He's doing what he has to do. He has to shuck and jive a little bit in order to get by. But this wasn't the last, unfortunately. The Trans-Pacific Partnership was probably the thing that drew the crust from my eyes. And we're like, oh, Howard Zinn is right. Not all of us are in the same boat. And just because you have wearing a particular mask, politicians use race, gender, sexuality, whatever they can use, whatever their attributes are, for political gain. In this case, black. He was black. And he was able to use that for political gain. And there are a lot of people out there, Democrats, who cannot make the distinction between his race versus what he actually does, believing that his race is somehow some mystical quality that automatically translates the policy. To disabuse you of that myth, it does not. It does not. Let's see. Fletcher Daniels, she should move on elsewhere, haha, because YouTube isn't on our side, on hers to some degree. Okay, I missed that one. What does this have to do with Bernie? Jay Scott, so Bernie Sanders was in a speech. In that speech, Bernie Sanders had a tepid criticism of Obama. Somebody asked him a question, he answered. Because this was on the birthday, or the death day of Martin Luther King, a bunch of Hillbots and a bunch of people who were Hillary supporters and Obama supporters flipped out. How dare you criticize Barack Obama on the day Martin Luther King died? All through Twitter, they've been screaming this. Joanne Reed, all of the normal, all of the usuals. And I looked at this and I said, this is ridiculous. This is too stupid. The tepid criticism is a criticism he's made for God knows how long. And he's right. And yet, nonetheless, they attacked Bernie Sanders over this. My point, Jay, was that I wasn't going to attack, or I wasn't going to defend Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders said nothing wrong. I was making this juxtaposition of, this is what King went through and what King did. This was his legacy. And this is Obama. This is what Obama did when it came to race, when it came to identity, when it came to actually risking something to defend a friend of his that was unfairly tarnished by the police. That's my point. That when you look at these two quantities, the people who are screaming at the top of their lungs about Martin Luther King, how dare you criticize Barack Obama on Martin Luther King's birthday, there's no connection between the two other than race. And if the only connection that you have is race, then that's not a connection, or very little connection at all. I'm sorry. Yes, Martin Luther King died so Barack Obama could have certain advantages. But he is spinning in his grave at what he's done with those opportunities and those advantages. These people howling at Bernie Sanders for saying a tepid criticism about Obama, I would go far harder. My only critique of Bernie in that is that he didn't go far and hard enough. I can't see MLK supporting Hillary, but hey, no one can really know. I have a hard time believing that Martin Luther King will come out and support Obama. Let me say it this way. LBJ is backing King in this, meaning he's standing beside him. Martin Luther King comes out against LBJ's position, full well understanding the consequences to King himself. I have a hard time believing that Obama expanding 2 wars to 6 or 7 would get Martin Luther King's endorsement. Explain to me how. He comes out against the Vietnam War when his own person is in jeopardy for doing so. Are you trying to tell me that he wouldn't come out against Obama because he's black? Is that what you're telling me? Come on. Come on. Let's be honest. We're saying that this man is so full of integrity, full of morality and everything else, but he's so... I guess the argument... I don't buy the argument. Let me say it that way. I don't think race will be the distinguishing factor in whether or not King will come out and say something about Obama going into one country after the next. I don't think race will be the distinguishing factor in King making the point that, hey, these healthcare rates are going through the roof. You're supposed to do something for healthcare. How are you dealing with healthcare while at the same time trying to protect these companies? I don't think King will let race be the distinguishing factor in coming out saying, wait a minute, you're letting homeowners go bust while you protect the banks. No. I don't think King will let race be the distinguishing factor in those things. I think he would say something about it. So, yeah, I think this comparison between Obama and King is absurd. It's absurd. I heard them say this, and I was like, Dr. King was a great fucking man. The moral gravity of King, the courage that he exhibited throughout his life. Do you know King had a conversation? People asked him, how do you do what you do? How? Not the speeches. How do you put yourself on the line in that way? How do you do it? You're under threat. People are saying bad things about you. This is not a bunch of Twitter trolls. These are people who are putting stuff on his yard, who are throwing stuff in his house, bombing his house. He's under constant threat. His life is at threat. His family's at threat. How? How do you do this? How do you get up in the morning to do this? How do you put yourself on the line like this? How do you have this moral gravity about you? How do you pull this off? I can't see myself doing it. How do you do it? Martin Luther King said, I saw those kids get on those buses and go to the South. I saw those kids do it, and I didn't understand how they could pull it off. How on earth in your young years were you able to go out and put yourself on the line for this issue? And I thought to myself, if they can do it, I don't have an excuse. That's what he said. I saw them do it, and I lost my excuse for saying something, for being loud, for getting involved. Even with my life on the line, even with my family life on the line, what I am doing matters more than my own safety. I saw the kids do it. I lost my excuse. Obama was president of the United States. He had control of the apparatus. He used that apparatus to protect the banks, to bomb a lot of poor human beings, to fuck over the Constitution in pursuit of the bombing of those human beings, to expand mass surveillance. The fact is, he took over from Bush, and instead of this hope and change and expansion that he told everybody, he just did minor tweaks. If you're saying that there was a change from Bush to Obama, congratulations. George Bush was a fucking war monster. Certainly, there can be certain more than just incremental changes between the two. The fact is, there weren't. There were minor changes, yeah. But if you're running your campaign on this idea of hope and change and this, emancipatory hope, and you go drone bombing country after country after country, you're murdering Americans, civilians, Americans, in some cases. I mean, what am I to think of that? I look at Martin Luther King, he's a virulent socialist, virulent anti-war, anti-imperialist. And you're making a comparison between these two people. In fact is, the only real comparison that you can make is that they're black. Is that they're black. The same person who have zero problem resurrecting the war criminal like W. Felicia's, yeah, agreed. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely. I mean, these are the same people who are trying to, rehabilitate George W. Bush. It's amazing. MLK would hate the Democrats today, yet they would make them their hero. He is turning in his murdered grave. This makes me sick. Doug Jones quoted MLK in his acceptance speech. Is so sick. It is. This is my point. It angers me. I'm African American. I was born and raised in the heart of the Confederacy, Richmond, Virginia. Born and raised. My grandfather is Native American. He's a quarter Native American. He was born and raised in Virginia, I think Buckingham. My grandmother, African American with Native American in her lineage also. I think it's her grandfather or something. This is my country. When I play Civilization, I only play as America because that's my country. I don't have this. I don't like this thing of people say they love their country and everything else. I don't really know what that means. But my affinity is here. If I go anywhere else, I'm considered an American. Not black. I'm considered an American. Now, if I'm in Britain, they may say black, but in most countries, you're just an American. Because the fact is, regardless of what your racial identity is, it's being here seeps into you. It comes out of you. You don't have to open your mouth. People know who you are. This is my identity. This is where I come from. That being said, race is not the end-all and be-all. It is a lens to some degree, but it's not the lens. It's not the definitive lens. It's not the only thing that you use when you're looking at the world and trying to understand the world that you find yourself. I read this. Even the way blacks vote for Democrat, it bugs me. If I'm being honest, it bugs me. You're leveraging the image of a great man to deal with an image of a not so great man. That's what this feels like to me. Obama got elected. Obama is charismatic. Whatever you want to say about him, he is a charismatic person. But that being said, I'm looking at his deeds. What did you do when you had the opportunity to do something great? When you were using his legacy to get elected? What did you do with the opportunity that you were given? And would Martin Luther King look at your works? And would he say, yes, good job? Or would he be appalled? And I think the fact is, he would be appalled. He would be appalled. Call it what it is. Call it what it is. Jamal is African American. What the fuck? How did I miss that? I don't know, man. I don't know, dog. I don't know. Luca Clemente. It was very difficult to know what Martin Luther King would do if he were alive today. People change. I would like to think he would reject parties. John Lewis, once aligned with King, now supports Hillary. Well, Cornel West hasn't changed. What would Cornel West do? Well, Cornel West is still here. Cornel West is a minister. Cornel West worked with King. What would Cornel West do? Cornel West never wavered in his moral gravity and what he wanted. I believe, and you're right, Luca, I don't know as a flat fact, but I would imagine, I would hope that he would take the perspective of Cornel West. That's what I would hope. Cornel West didn't allow his moral compass to be taken and hijacked by the party system. Cornel West allowed humanity to be his value system. He had the Howard Zinn approach to looking at the world. If we do something, or if they do something, we say it's bad. What about us? Are we also doing the same thing? Fact is, I can't control their behavior. The behavior that I control is what takes place in this country. This country, I am responsible for this country. If we're doing bad things around the world, I am required to say something. This country, for all intents and purposes, like any countries, are supposed to be governed, or the power of the democratic process or the democratic government is from the people who are under that government. Meaning you have a responsibility to scream at the top of your lungs if your government is doing something that your government has no business doing, especially if it's destroying and injuring and killing other human beings. That's the position that I hope Dr. King would take if he were alive today. Nothing to do with parties. Everything to do with the humanitarian standpoint of we are in those countries murdering those people, many of those people being civilians. I can play you the Vietnam speech. I have a hard time believing Dr. Martin Luther King would repudiate that speech. And if he would not repudiate that speech, you could use that speech today. You can use it today. Take out the word Vietnam, add in Iraq. You can use it today. Now, unless I believe he would repudiate his own words, which I don't believe that, then I suspect he would be against that war. And if he wasn't against that war, people like me will be playing his video to him on the Vietnam War going after Martin Luther King. I don't believe Martin Luther King will be a hillbot. I have a hard time believing that Martin Luther King will be on board with bombing multiple countries. I have a hard time believing that Dr. Martin Luther King, Pastor Martin Luther King, who so stridently and bravely and courageously went out against the Vietnam War, would all of a sudden turn into a neocon and a hawk and support the Obama policy of bombing multiple countries and killing thousands of civilians. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Yeah, Luca. I agree this attack on Bernie is bullshit, but saying Obama's charisma gave the Democrats cover is also BS. They got no cover. That's why Trump is president. No. It did give them cover. It did. If Obama ran again, do you think Obama would have won? And the answer is yes. No other factors changed. Nothing else has changed. What other factors changed? My point is, if Obama ran, Obama has a certain charisma about him that works. It works. I'm sorry, it works. And yeah, he was able to get elected. If he ran again under the same pretext that Hillary Clinton ran, Obama would win. He would win. I'm just saying. You may disagree with me on this, but it does give that party a certain amount of cover that party is affiliated with Obama. So, Smokey over the line, I feel where you're coming from. I disagree with you on that one. If MLK lived in the 90s, we would not have seen the Clintons rise to power. That I don't know. That I don't know. Because Reagan, like I know I've said before that Clintons. Look, Reagan was a powerhouse. Reagan was a powerhouse. Fact is, the Democratic Party contorted to be more like Reagan. Bill Clinton is somewhat of a copy of Reagan in the way that Reagan went about his affairs. Reagan was the doom bringer of sorts. He was the one who put his stamp into politics so much that the president of the opposing party, or the Clinton, tilted to be more like him. I don't know if King would have had the gravity they would have had back in the 50s and 60s in order to kind of make that take place. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Can we please... What was that? Can we please resurrect technology? Oh, can we perfect resurrection technology to bring back FDR? No. A. Maris, no. I don't want to bring back FDR. I don't want to go back to the 50s or 40s. I don't want to go back to the 40s. Why are we going back in time? Why are we going back in time? Does it not behoove us to find our own path in something different, in something new? Fact is, FDR, for all of his pluses, his goal in this was to save capitalism. I don't want to save capitalism. That's not my objective. That's not my goal. Now, I would prefer to have a different system. Whatever that system is, let technology do most of the labor. Contort the society to allow technology to do the majority of the labor and allow human beings to be human beings. That doesn't mean that human beings aren't going to work. Human beings are still going to work. My point is, I don't want to save capitalism as FDR did. I understand your point, though. Your point is, can we reorganize ourselves in a way that's more fair, more equitable, and deals with the vagaries of our society, like poverty and so forth? I understand where you're coming from. I guess my point is, FDR still left those class antagonisms in place. Meaning you still had unions versus the elites. Why? Why? Why does that exist? Get rid of it. Have worker co-ops. Have the government help support worker co-ops. I'm making this point that you have these antagonisms built into the way your society organizes itself. You have advantages given to elites in the way they go about their labor, especially when you open up these shores where you can have these international corporations and all this other stuff. You can move jobs overseas and vice versa. Get rid of it. Deal with the antagonisms that are in your society. Deal with the conflicts. Like, I guess I'm saying FDR didn't do that. Any movement forward should take that into account. Not to mention, it left open, why are we using a New Deal? Whatever we need to do, wherever we need to go from the standpoint of the left, needs to instantiate our gains. It shouldn't be something that they can claw back. It needs to be something that we instantiate. It needs to be policy moving forward, not policy moving forward for a while until somebody gets in office and they can claw those gains back. I understand what you're saying. FDR was awesome in this regard. But can we do better? Can we do better? Absolutely. FDR wanted a universal basic income combined with a maximum wage cap, refining capitalistic pyramid, creating a healthy distribution of wealth. Agreed. A friend of mine asked me, he was a Hillary supporter, he said, how high would you like to raise taxes? I said, I would like to have a maximum income. No, be serious. I am being serious. I would like to have a maximum income. Oh, dude, that's never going to get passed. Well, you didn't ask me what will get passed. You asked me what do I want. Now, the reason I want that is because, look, we have this weird idea, and maybe it's not weird, that there is no height. Like you can go through the roof and you can just go forever. As if Bill Gates ever really did enough work, or not Bill Gates, Bezos, ever did enough labor to come up with $100 billion. He didn't. The economic system itself that allows Bezos to get that much money is a failed system. There is no situation where any one human being should have that much wealth. If your system allows it, your system has failed. That's where I'm coming from. Now, it doesn't mean that Jeff Bezos shouldn't be given some incentive to do what he does. I'm not against the incentive. In fact, I've changed my perspective on this. When I started this channel, I was headlong into this, we must destroy capitalism, we must get rid of money, and we must get rid of all this stuff. And I started thinking from the standpoint of, can we as a society create additional incentives? Yes. How do you transition to those additional incentives? I don't know. Now, what I mean by that is any transition, because it's one thing to say, I want this utopian society. There's no such thing as utopia, but I want this society that's cashless and better, etc., etc. But you get stuck on this thing, how do you transition into that? And I started thinking from the standpoint of, what does a transition look like? The fact is, you're stuck with something that gives some incentive to get people to do certain things. Now, what I mean by that is not necessarily cash. And it doesn't necessarily mean that your society needs to be organized in a way where it fucks over the planet, nor does it mean your society needs to be organized in a way where you have poverty. What is a way to incentivize human beings without bashing them in their needs? Meaning, I'm incentivizing you because if you don't do X, you're not going to eat, you're not going to have anywhere to stay, you're going to die cold and exposed to the elements. So I am compelling you and forcing you to work based on your own frailties of your own physicality. Can we even just get from that? Can we just start at not doing that? I guess my point here is I've changed my perspective on some of this stuff. And when I think of the Venus Project, I always hit my head on, but what about the jobs people hate? Like it's easy to say, we can just automate everything. Yeah. But assume that's not true. What if we can't? What if the technology is not to the point where we can do that yet? How do you incentivize things that you absolutely hate? Somebody has to clean the warped plasma coils. How do you do that? Now, to be fair, you can incentivize all sorts of things based on the culture and based on the society. It will require a change in our value system, meaning the goal should not be to get as much as you can and everything else. The fact is, we have more than enough to go around in regards to people having their needs met and having abundance for everybody. We don't have enough to go around if Jeff Bezos gets $100 billion. The society needs to change. Society needs to change. Look, my point is, whatever that incentive is, we send people off to war. People decide, I want to go to fight for my country, and I'm going to go and I'm going to get killed and mangled and everything else. They're not getting paid to do it per se. They are getting paid a regular wage. But the wage they're getting, is it really equal to getting your legs blown off? Is the wage that they get in the military really equal to shooting somebody in the face? No, it's not. They do it for different reasons. So the Venus Project is not wrong that your society be constructed in a way where people would do things for the societal good in the same way that they do things for the societal ill when they're going out killing people abroad and creating, I guess you can say, blowback against the United States. Culture, your society, how your society is arranged, in large part can dictate how it prospers itself or how it propagates itself. What I'm saying is poorly. I just mean right now we have a society that's built on work and everything else. People are working, even doing jobs when they don't necessarily need to do those jobs because we have enough to go around. I'm saying that society can be organized differently. There's no God above forcing it to be that way. And the fact that you have people willing to go and kill them or get themselves killed or kill for the sake of their country gives you this idea that, yes, there is a proof of concept that people will do things that go beyond the reason of just being money or just being paid to do those things. I started this channel purely just because I needed an outlet. I wasn't paid to do it. I did it because I felt like doing it. There are all sorts of things that people would do that they don't necessarily need to be paid to do. They do it because it drills in them. What is the purpose, or why do rich people do anything? If the logic is if people had access to the things that they need, they wouldn't do anything, why do rich people do anything? Why is Jeff Bezos still kicking about? We can be organized differently. That's my point. And this is a lot of wood to chop. I'm just saying, our society can be different. How our drives, our incentives, the value systems can be different. And the question becomes, how do you transition into something else? And that answer is always, I don't know. I would make the case that you use small changes. Two things. First, you have an idea in your head of where you want to go. But the second point is small changes that seems innocuous, but have larger consequences that would allow you to pivot into larger areas. You're making these changes somewhat incrementally that allows society to adapt to the changes themselves. It's not some drastic change. What did the society look like? And proof of concept, the right wing did this. with help from the Democrats. What did the country look like in the 40s? What did the country look like in the 70s? After Reagan? How about now? The country from Reagan would be indistinguishable, meaning Reagan would have no understanding of what these people are doing in these offices. And Reagan would fit perfectly at home within the Democratic Party as a moderate. It changes. It changes. The balance of self-awareness while maintaining selflessness is difficult. Yes, it is, Fletcher. It is. It is. It's not easy. Jamal started the channel because Progressive Voice told him to. Where do you think all that super chat money goes? Oh, God. You're trying to say Progressive Voice is pimping me out. That's funny. That's actually funny. JT Gold is a live stream from his bedroom and bathroom 24/7. Is that my goal? That's my objective? Look, I enjoy doing this channel. You know, it's funny. And I'll end it on this because we've gone way too long talking about this. I was having a conversation with somebody, and I was telling them, I said, yeah, I do a YouTube thing. And I was about to say, yeah, I work. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to call the YouTube channel work per se. And then I realized, I was like, but it kind of is. Like when you take into account Patreon, you take into account Super Chat, you take into account the videos themselves, it becomes a job. Not a bad job. It's your job if you don't make it. But you start in a weird way at some point. So I don't even know when. It became, I need to do videos for tonight. I don't know where that came. I don't know where that happened. Like, I don't know when that moment of, it's just, I'm dicking around to, okay, I need to do videos for tonight. The difference between dicking around versus I need to do. I don't know when that changed. I don't know when it changed. But I like doing it, so as long as I like doing it, I'll do it. Jamal, do you give consideration to not voting? My father, in his 80s, stopped after Bush was reelected in 2004. Cool Blue, no. No. In part because Martin Luther King. Like, as an African American, it feels some kind of way to not vote after all of those people were beat and killed and hurt just trying to get the right to vote. I feel some kind of way not voting. I feel some kind of way. I don't care the situation. I'm dragging my ass to the polls, even if I need to write in somebody's name. So, I mean, you can call that technically a not vote. But no, I'm going to vote. I just hope I have somebody to go and vote for. So, Jamal Thomas, he should not even give Barack Obama a compliment. I do not know being in a country illegally illegal women. Illegally is charismatic. I did not know being in a country illegally is charismatic. He should not even give Barack Obama a compliment. I did not know being in a country illegally is charismatic. What? I don't get that one, Shirley Vick. Who's in a country illegally? I don't know who's in a country. You're talking about Obama. Oh, you're trying to say because he's from Kenya? I hope that's not what you're saying. I hope that's not what you're saying. I hope that's not what you're saying. Look, he's going to need those Hillbots votes. This is a war for the Hillbots. That's what this is. This is a war for the Hillbots. Winkle the Burning Bird. Jamal replied to your email a bit ago. By the way, thanks for indulging me. Oh, dude, I'm not indulging you. If I said something wrong, I want to know. I want to know. Like, if my subscriber said, dude, this is not exactly the way that you've been thinking about this and you've gotten this wrong. I want to know. Like, I have a bias in this. Because I have a bias in this. If my bias is getting the better of my better judgment, I want to know. What I mean by this is, anybody who's doing a channel, and to some degree does a channel because they want views. Otherwise, if you're doing it just to be in your bedroom, you can do it just in your bedroom. You don't have to show anybody. As you try to grow your channel, and as you grow your channel, there's certain venues that gets views. Hands down, there's certain venues. If you're hating Hillary Clinton, you're going to hit 100,000 views if you do videos every day about hating Hillary Clinton. If you do videos about hating TYT, you're going to hit 30, 40,000 just doing videos hating TYT. I don't want to get videos like that. I don't want my audience to be aggregated around people who hate TYT or who hate Hillary Clinton and stuff like that. They may do that just by virtue of my content when I'm talking about other stuff. But I don't want that to be specifically they are here for X. Now, if I'm doing a video on TYT where I'm going after something that one of them said, in my head, whether I'm trying to do it or not, it's kind of besides the point. My rule is, if there's a bias, if there's an incentive for somebody to do something, oftentimes people do things. They react based on emotion, not necessarily on their intellect. Their emotion guides what they think. If their emotions are saying, hey, this can get views if you're talking about this particular subject, and the opportunity arises to talk about that particular subject, well, I'm going to talk about the subject. Now, the question becomes, if I am wrong, that's different. I want to know. Like, I don't want it to be a situation where my biases get ahead of me. Winkle, I saw your video, and I thought, I need to see the other one before I say anything. I think you're being too narrow in the way you're looking at it, but I could be wrong. What I mean by that is, why are they talking about supporting Putin? Say you and I are having the conversation, and we're talking about Russia. And in talking about Russia, let's say I'm the Hillbot. Let's say I'm Cenk Uygur. And you and I are talking, and I'm telling you about Syria, and you're just crushing my argument. And I'm like, yeah, but Papadopoulos, and you're like, but that guy who tipped off, that guy was a Hillbot himself. I mean, he was with the Hillary Clinton. Well, I mean, Trump is a Putin puppet. He's a Putin robot. But how? I mean, he's passing sanctions. He's doing this. He's doing that. I mean, he's in fucking Syria. He's paying neo-Nazis in the Ukraine. Yeah, but those are Nerf bombs and they're blah, blah, blah. And then I say to you, look, I don't know why you're supporting Putin. Putin is a horrible guy. And it's like, I mean, fuck, man. Putin is a horrible guy. I mean, you know, look what he did to Pussy Riot. Look what he did to this. Look what he did to that. Now, if you stop the conversation there, like if somebody takes that part of the conversation and they emphasize that very specific part of the conversation, it sounds like, hey, he's just going after somebody for supporting Putin without the context of what was he talking about before he got to the point of talking about that. The reason why I sent you the email said, well, I need to see the entirety of it because I need to see what they were saying before they got to that point. Because part of the video I saw, they were talking about people attacking, you know, this kind of Russia stuff. Or people supporting Vladimir Putin. And I'm like, I don't know anybody who's supporting Vladimir Putin. Why are they even talking about lefties supporting Vladimir Putin? What would be the reason for them to bring this up? They didn't do an entire video talking about it. There had to be something there that allowed the pretext for them to even get to that point. Now, that's why I said, well, I need to see the entirety of the video because I need to see what they were talking about before. So, Winkle, it's not an indulging. It's a thank you for keeping me honest, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Thank you for your show, Jamal. Cool Blue 71. Thank you, Cool Blue. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Shawari Kate. How you doing, Kate? Let's see. There we are. Part of the swords to plowshares. Surely that. What is crazy? They want to take out dictators and take care of their country, like healthcare, free tuition, or GMO-free foods. You know, in that speech, the Vietnam speech, part of the thing that Martin Luther King said was a country that's willing to go and bomb and everybody else while leaving all of these other poor in its own country. Making this moral argument like you're willing to spend all this money on bombs and planes and missiles in this war of aggression. And you have all of these people who are hungry and nowhere to stay in your own country. It's a damning, like it's, I'm just saying, man, bringing Obama into this does not apply. It's fucking ridiculous. Zach Simpson, AJ Goodman channel is ridiculous nowadays. Nothing but breaking news about non-issues. I saw that. Breaking news! It's 74 degrees outside today. What? Yeah, he's doing his thing. Look, man, all of us who do channels, let me say it this way. You know, when I saw, I can't remember what I watched or what I looked at, but something happened, something dramatic happens. And I remember thinking to myself, those people are functioning based upon the natural incentives built in the system to which they exist. I don't care what it is. If you're a human being, you're functioning with any system, within some kind of space. What are the incentives of that space? Because I will almost guarantee you that based on the incentives of that space, that's going to somehow dictate the behavior of the people that are in that space. HA, like me, like other people who are doing videos, we earn either through super chat, patron, or views. The question becomes, okay, how do you maximize those things? It's capitalism, right? Maximize your profit. Even if you're a lefty, you're still stuck within that paradigm. How do you maximize your profit? Now, each person has done all sorts of different things in order to try to do that. In HA's case, well, that's a stream. He was able to tap into a stream and he ran with it. He ran with that stream. And he has that audience to, for the most part, support him. As long as he doesn't deviate too much from what he's saying, his audience will be there for him. Part of his format is using breaking news to try to put eyes on the screen. Can't fault him. He's doing what he needs to do to make ends meet. It's like, can you fault the used car salesman selling you a lemon if he has a wife to feed? Yeah, you as an individual can fault him because he's fucking sold me a lemon. But me sitting here looking at that saying, the guy has a wife to feed, what am I to expect from him? Am I expect his integrity to allow his kid to go hungry? Or is his integrity going to have to take a back seat so he can feed his kid? Everyone knows the answer to that. Nobody in their right mind is going to let their kid go hungry. Ultimately, they're going to do what they have to do to feed their kid. It's no different than a used car salesman than if you're talking about somebody on YouTube or somebody doing something else. They do what they have to do to put asses in seats. The funny part about HA is he may end up being right about Hillary Clinton being prosecuted. Wouldn't that be fucking ridiculous, fucking hilarious? And man, I am going to tape that show if that happens. Oh God, can you imagine that show, the H.A. Goodman show, if Hillary Clinton gets perp walked? That shit is going to be 4 hours long, and it's going to be H.A. Goodman screaming like, yes, I knew it! You bitches joked me. Her ass is going to prison, and I told you she was going to prison. I'm H.A. fucking Goodman, author, writer, editor, H.A. Huffington Post, and all this stuff. That's what I am. Man, that show is going to be glorious and euphoric, and I'm going to be there with bells on watching that shit. That's going to be amazing. That's going to be fucking amazing. Oh, snap. Jamal just shitted on you, Winkle. No, I didn't. Nothing up to such. They were talking about an anti-gay Putin ad. Ah, I see. And I've personally come across people online that try to defend Putin from the left. Ah, I see, Winkle. Okay. Okay, Winkle. Jamal's consciousness resides in his pen. His avatar can never let go too long. Ah, I see, I see. Thank you for responding, Winkle. I'll check your email out, and I'll check the video. I haven't come across lefties defending Putin. That would seem bizarre to me, if I'm being honest. I think I know why they do it. And I think they're being... Yeah, if they're doing it, I think I know why they're doing it. So, the, that binary thinking thing. Like, you have Democrats and Republicans. Republicans are batshit crazy and horrible, so Democrats have to be awesome. No, they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't. It can be both. Now, if you're right, and they were specifically talking about lefties who were doing it, then fair enough. Fair enough. I just know they have a tendency to shit on lefties talking about this Russiagate nonsense. So, but fair enough. Fair enough. I gotta be honest. I don't know why anybody would defend Putin. I honestly don't. It's one thing to say. I did a video the other day where I was kind of making this point of you can have a situation where multiple people are bad. Like there are no angels in this scenario, where the things like and there's a specific thing that people tend to do in that case. Well, I just want to focus on the narrow thing of the other person. I don't want to focus on the other stuff. Now, if somebody is defending Putin, how are they defending him? Is this a whataboutism type defense, or is this? I need to see it. I need to see it, Winkle. If you send me the thing, I'll take a look at it. I will take a look. BB Hammer, I'm still subbed to HA's channel, but only watch certain interviews he does, like Susie Dawson. I like HA. Like HA, I think people get HA wrong to some degree. I've heard people call him a Trump supporter. I've heard people call all sorts of stuff. The man was a Bernie supporter. If anything, he may have in his head that you use one, monster in order to beat down another monster. I gotta be honest, I don't necessarily think he's wrong. Yeah, I don't necessarily think he's wrong on that. He's sort of a Jewish Beavis or Butthead. Bob Ramirez. He is not. Well, but the Jewish thing, yeah, he is Jewish. And he does have some Zionistic ideas. When I had him on my show, he was pushing that Zion stuff. But look, not everybody's perfect. Everybody has their own, their own things. So. Chink and Anna dismiss an argument involving Putin because Putin is a bad person. Ignore the issue and argue about the price of tea in China. Yeah, agreed. Din 1. Crystal Boyd. HA is the ultimate clickbait, but I guess it's good he keeps track of all the little details. He's... Yes-ish. I mean, I'm saying ish. Because I've heard his argument. I don't know if I agree with his argument that he's making to justify the way he does his titles. But it's his channel. He does whatever he wants. I mean, at that point, people... I've had this channel, what, a year? At this point, you guys know me. You guys know my fuck-ups. You guys know my foibles. You guys know, like, you've seen me do videos without sound on for like 30 minutes. Shit is embarrassing. At a certain point, you just get over the embarrassment of it. Otherwise, you can't do it. You can't do the videos. I would imagine his audience knows him. I would imagine his audience knows him. They look at his titles and they know what the titles are. Other people come into it, maybe, fooled for a moment, but after a while, they get the hang of it. I don't have an issue with him. I like him. Putin warned the United States about the Boston bomber, Shirley Vick. Garnome, I like HA, and it's true that many people don't understand his position. Does he engage in clickbait? Yes, but I have no issue with that. Yeah, like I said, at a certain point, people get used to it. HA is a self-admitted Zion. Yeah, he's a left-wing Zionist. He's owned it. I love your no-sound videos. So funny to watch. You think you're talking to us. Yeah, I know, right? It's like you have an entire video. Your arms are like flailing for like 30 minutes, and you're like, fuck. There was 40 people here to see that. You just have to deal. At that point, it's like, all right, that happened. We were here for that. It's okay. We'll make it through. Yeah. Focus on the solutions. Do not play the game of he said, she said. The order of chaos. I like your name, dude. I love the name. Less lag lately, so good job dodging Algae Pat. Din 1. No, I'm in a new place. My wife and I moved. So my wife and I are trying to travel. We're going to be here for 3 months and then travel. We didn't want to take on another lease, and so we moved to the top floor of my mom's place. So I've staked out this room as my new studio. They have internet service that is amazing. Their internet service is fucking bar none amazing. And their icebox is to die for. My mom's icebox is to die for. So, yeah, that's why. Top 5, Jimmy, Jamal, Cal, Rogan, Sargon. I have a video of Sargon Al-Kad going against Maoists that I haven't had the chance to do yet. I had to get my energies up to do it. There's specific sections of the video that I want to talk about. But because it's funny. It's an interesting video. The guy is a Maoist. I've never heard anybody who's a Maoist. It shocked the shit out of me. And when I find people who I'm fascinated by, even when I don't agree with them, I find myself going through their catalog. Like going through video after video after video after video. This guy, I can't think of his name. He battles a lot online. Like it's funny to watch. Like and I don't mean funny in a bad way. All of us have a position, have a fixed point of view. And those, like I said, those point of views are floating in an ocean that are, relative to other points of view. Well, he is a subsection, like he has his own point of view, and he has 30,000 people that's aggregated around their point of view. This kind of Maoist, communistic type point of view. And he's been battling all of these people online. Some of the battles, he's trashed them. Like, there was one where these assholes surprised him. They jumped him. They essentially brought him on the show, capitalists, and talked down to him, but lost the argument. He won the argument. Hands down, he won the argument. He eradicated them. They had no understanding of history, no context of the information he was talking about, nothing about Marxism, meaning the ideology, and knew nothing about that stuff. They got handed their asses. Now, I've seen him in other cases where it's like, okay, this is a fuckfest. I have no idea what the fuck you two are talking about, and I don't think you two are talking about anything. You guys are just arguing over definitions. And in the case with Sargon was different. That was interesting. He lost that argument. Sargon won that argument. The reason Sargon won that argument is not because Sargon had a great argument. In fact, Sargon's argument could have been ripped apart. He won it because the other cat was stuck to the ideology. He was so fixed on this kind of Marxist, communistic thing that he felt the need to defend this particular position. So when Sargon would say something that was laughably false, he was like, capitalism doesn't really have any bad points. What? What? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? He should have been ripped apart on that alone. And the fact is, the guy, he was so stuck on this thing of defending this other position that he let him get away with shit like that. Talking about environment alone gets rid of the argument. Not even just the environment. The calamities, the wars. The wars. What took place in these other countries? Sargon was talking about these people happy to get a cell phone. Were they happy to have their country destroyed? When Iran, just off the top of my head, when BP wanted more oil money, what did he think that was? Does he think that's because of the capitalistic impulse of maximizing your profit, or do you think that was just magic? No, they wanted more money. They wanted more oil revenue because in their mind, maximizing their profit mattered more than the societal impact of destroying Iran. They put in a brutal dictator. I understand that some people may be happy to have cell phones. What about those people who were there for the brutal dictator? You think those people were happy in that situation? There's consequences. Any arrangement of society is going to have a consequence. My issue with Sargon I would have had no issue with what Sargon said if he would have said there were certain consequences, but the winds, the winds outweigh the consequences. At that point, you're arguing over whether or not the winds outweigh the consequences. But to take such a dramatic stance of like there's little to no problems with capitalism other than other than inequality, and that's not even a big deal. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Yeah. That's it. Sargon lost that debate with Jason Uru. Neither are very strong debaters. Garden, I didn't think he lost that debate. Yeah, Jason Uru, that's his name. I didn't think he lost that debate. I thought Jason lost that debate. I didn't think he should have lost that debate, but I think he lost that debate. Because I think he was so fixed on his ideology. That's why. Shirley Vic, Jamal, you should interview Sydney Sheenahan. She is going to have a woman's in October at the Pentagon. I hope you remember her son was killed in Iraq. Interview Deb Bella Pina. She is on YouTube. I look her up. Somebody else gave me somebody from climate science that was awesome that I'm going to look up and send an email to when I get the opportunity. Sydney Sheenahan. Okay. Sargon often starts to defend a bad position in an argument and then doubles down if he makes a bad judgment. The funny part about this is that was a ridiculous position to take. Like, I could make an argument and I could say, like, I can understand being hyperbolic in order to try to make your point, but that's such a hyperbolic point that it doesn't make sense. It's like saying this organization of the world has no consequences. It's fucking ridiculous. You know, they destroyed, they murdered all of these Native Americans for growth and expansion. Now you can say they did this purely for this thing of, well, that's not capitalism. I would argue that to some degree it was. Even if you argue that wasn't capitalism, slavery was. Why do you think they did that? You think they did that for their health? No, they got free labor. Why? Because in a capitalistic system, you have a profit motive built into this thing of maximizing your profit. And hey, I can maximize the shit out of my profit if I don't have to pay labor. Why do you think there's these labor disputes? They're back and forth over this stuff. The position that there's no consequence is absurd. It's absurd. You can say that the consequences doesn't outweigh the benefits. Okay. I disagree, but you can say that. I disagree because you can have a different system that doesn't have those problems. That system would have its own problems. But I would argue that those problems would be less than the problems we have in this system. But arguing that it doesn't have any is insane. Yeah. As someone who studied economics, universal basic income is a horrible idea at this point. If we want to give more power to our corporate overlords, that's the best way to do it. A federal jobs guarantee is better. I think both. Yeah, I think both. I think you need both. I wouldn't call it a universal basic income, but I think you need both. I'll call it something else. I would call it, I don't know what I would call it, but resources. If you were born in America, there are certain resources that were attributed to America. And the fact is, we should not be selling those resources. And if we do sell those resources, the people of this country should get kickback for that. I don't want to call it a universal basic income. And yeah, okay, call it universal basic income. I'm just making the point that the money is coming from the fact that you're an American. And as an American, the oil, the coal, the gold, all these things, the mining, the taking, the profiting of all of the resources of this country, there should be a kickback to the citizens of this country. Why is government giving away shit that belongs to all of us? Why are they giving it away? Dudes talking ideology bored me. BB Hammer, me too. Because there's no way to go with it. Like, the only way you can argue that is how your ideology lines up with the physical matter of reality world. That's the best you can get. I like capitalism. I think capitalism is awesome. Okay. What about poverty? I don't think poverty is that big of a deal. Okay. Like, it's like ideologically, it's like, but yeah, how does it line up with the real world? That's the argument. Yeah, I agree with you, BB. Those, I don't usually think those, like those. But the conversation with Uru was interesting because he was a Maoist. It's the Maoist thing that blew my mind. I was like, I've never heard anybody say they were a Maoist. Fucking shocked the shit out of me. It's like, okay, what else is this guy talking about? They have their own world of they call it third worlders. Like, it's amazing. They have their own culture and everything else. I was fucking fascinated. Absolutely fascinated. Winkle the Burning Bro. I'm 29. No one I grew up around was in Motown, but I always loved James Brown. I love James Brown too. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. We have to end capitalism first before UBI would work. That I don't necessarily agree with, Brahm. Yeah, I don't think I agree with that, Brahm. You can have both. You can have both. Like, you can have a universal basic income and a federal jobs guarantee. The federal jobs guarantee has multiple benefits. It's not just anybody get a job. You deal with the minimum wage issue by a federal jobs guarantee. Whatever the federal government is setting the minimum wage at, or whatever that wage is, that by default is going to become the minimum wage, because every employer or employee would have the potential to say, I'm leaving if you don't give me what the government is giving me. Overnight. In the same way the federal government says we have a federal jobs guarantee, wages would rise. Federal jobs guarantee is an awesome idea. It's an amazing idea. If you work, you should be able to live your life. Not scrimp and scrape, not barely make ends meet. If you work, you should be able to live your life. And if your society doesn't provide that, if there is even one person impoverished, if there is even one person that can't afford a meal, your society has failed. Your society has failed. Get rid of poverty. It doesn't need to be in place. It is a relic. It needs to be obliterated. And fact is, it can be. We spent $80 billion on a whim, adding it to the military budget. If you say, hey, let's eradicate poverty for that much, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. People are so ignorant in their own town, world delusions. People need to realize poverty is an insane problem we should not have. Agreed. Agreed, 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 agreed. Absolutely agreed. I'm living check to check like the rest of the population, Mr. X. Like half of the population anyway, Mr. X. This is kind of my point, though. Why? 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 Half of the country is living in some level of poverty. I mean, I'm blown away that the country looks at this guy and says this guy has $100 billion and the world is good, and half of the country is living in poverty. I mean, that's fucking amazing. By himself, he can end poverty in this country. Think about that. Bezos can wake up tomorrow and says, I'm going to get rid of poverty. Get rid of poverty. Buckminster Fuller had a plan to eliminate poverty in the 1930s. Yeah, and he made that point that at this point, all of these things are a choice. War, poverty, to some degree crime, all of these things are choices by the society itself that allows these things to take place. These things do not have to take place. These things are configuration, how we are arranged is influencing the behavior that we take on. It does not have to exist. Poverty is violence. It's societal violence. And it's violence that we don't need to allow. If you did nothing else, meaning you kept your capitalistic system, you kept fucking over the environment, you kept fucking up all this other stuff, you kept screwing over workers, even if you did nothing else, get rid of poverty. It is violence. As somebody who grew up in a household that lacked, constant lack, barely making ends meet to even get food on the table. I'm talking about my mom, growing up as a single parent, as she was a single parent. It's violence. What is the life? What is the reality? What is the experiences? How do people turn out when they're in a situation of lack and they're doing whatever they need to do to get their ends meet? Why do you want that faculty in your society? The faculty of the person who's going to hit you over the head to take your wallet because they're barely making ends meet. Why do you want that in your society? Get rid of it. It is an unnecessary relic. It doesn't need to be there. It is a choice that we make as a society to allow poverty to take place. Part of the thing that Republicans get pissy at Democrats about is poverty, believe it or not. You scream about the poor, you scream about the impoverished, you scream about this, you scream about that, but you never do anything about it when you get in power. And they are right. They're right. Democrats scream about the poor in the same way Republicans scream about the debt. And they don't care about either one. Neither party does. They use those things as political gimmicks. The sooner the public realizes that, the sooner the better. Wake up. Wake up. I'm looking at MLK's photo over JLT's shoulder. He has such a sweet face. The man was a fucking saint. I like this photo, and I like this photo because those other photos showing him giving his speeches and everything else, that's an image of King. The reality is what he had to deal with on a day-to-day basis. The other stuff is propaganda. This is reality. This is how they treated him. Dragging him to jail multiple occasions. He was a criminal. He had a criminal record at that point because of a system that was oppressive. They dragged him to jail while he was praying. I showed you the video. MLK was much needed in his time, and he is much needed even now. Alright guys, I'm going to end this. I thought this video was going to last all of like 20 minutes, and we've gone like an hour and 30. So, you guys have an amazing... Holy shit, it's 2 in the morning. Alright, you guys have an amazing morning. I would probably see you all tomorrow. My wife is leaving for a trip tomorrow, so I'm probably going to be doing videos on Sunday and the days after until she gets back. And even when she gets back, but probably more so since she's going to be gone. Thank you guys for staying with me. Thank you guys for having a chat and talking. So, you guys have a decent night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Oh, by the way, Smokey Over the Line and Cool Blue 71, thank you very much, both of you. It's appreciated. I said this was a short one, an hour and 31 minutes is not a short one, but I get the sarcasm. All right, guys, you all have a good night.